I'm going to start with, believe it or not, is a cinnamon. Now, instead of buying the pre-ground cinnamon that comes in, you know, the little containers, I tend to buy whole sticks. Now, understand that whenever I'm cooking, I am coming from a culinary perspective. I want my food to taste great. Now, this will cost me more per pound initially, but I'm going to use less of it because of the flavor impact. I won't have to use 3 tablespoons of the powdered stuff when I only need to use a 1/4 teaspoon of this. The other thing that I'm going to do is, after I grind this, is in my dry pot, the first thing I'm going to do is toast my cinnamon. It doesn't take a lot, as you can see. Right on top of that, I've got a cup of butternut squash, and I probably should have measured out my oatmeal, and I didn't. I've also got zest from a tangerine. The reason it's a tangerine and not an orange, I think that the recipe says orange, because when I went to the grocery store, the orange was, they were $1 a piece. My tangerines were 2 for $1. So my recipe now has a tangerine bent to it, not an orange bent. My zest in at the beginning. The reason I toast my spices first, and the reason I put my zest in, the spices are going to give me a depth of flavor. The oil, natural oil in the tangerine zest, is going to come out when I've applied it to some dry heat. I'm going to use a little bit of real butter. Not using margarine. This particular recipe, because it's oatmeal, and in my house we kind of automatically assume that our oatmeal should be creamy, and by creamy, be adding milk or whatever. Dairy can be expensive. My butternut squash is going to give me the texture that we expect, but it's not going to give me a flavor that I want. But I'm going to hit it with a pat of butter, just a pat of butter, because that's all that this is going to need. You can probably start smelling the cinnamon over there.
Smells good.
The other cool thing about using our steel cut oats, I don't make a mess of them, a little bit goes a long way. Actually, we're going to even use a little bit less. My favorite way to cook this stuff is to put into a crock pot overnight. I'll take about a ½ cup of it and then a quart of apple cider and a cinnamon stick. Turn it on and walk away, and in the morning breakfast is done. In fact, breakfast is done for the week. It makes a nice big pot of it. Then I can take it and I can break it up into little Ziploc bags. I throw it into the freezer, and for the rest of the week I have instant oatmeal. But right now what will happen is that the heat is starting to coax some of the liquid out of the butternut squash, and some of that liquid is going to get absorbed into my whole grain, so that the oatmeal itself is going to get infused with flavor. The oatmeal, because I haven't put any water in here yet, or liquid, and I'm going to use water today, but I will tell you that if when you're not on a food stamp budget, go ahead and use cider. Use pear cider, use apple cider, or even apple juice. It's a great way to add a natural sweetness that you won't have to add sugar. So now, what I'm going to be doing is adding water. And you see that I'm not really measuring my water, because this is cooked in a technique similar to risotto. If anybody's ever cooked risotto, a very slow cooking Italian rice dish. What I've done was add just enough water to cover my oatmeal and vegetables. Yeah, vegetable. And I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and as it starts to simmer, I'll stir it. And as the oatmeal absorbs the liquid and the flavor, I'll keep adding the liquid until the butternut squash starts to break down. So